April, Zach, and Roger and Ira. Yes.
4. All right.
Oh, Roger left us again.
Oh, he's still there.
Roger's back. Roger, you're muted.
You gotta hang in there, Roger. You're making quorum.
We can see you. We can't hear you.
Oh no, I see leaving. Oh goodness. Well, Zach, we got to have 4 steady members here to get ourselves at quorum. So, hang in there.
Sounds good. We'll hold off just a moment and maybe get Roger in here permanently.
Roger, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but we can see that you're here, but you're muted.
How many did we need for quorum?
We have it now as long as Roger's hanging in there.
Okay.
So if you're ready, Zach, you'll need to alert our City 7 folks.
Just a second. Just wanted to let you know, Diane just emailed me and said that she was trying to get in and her app said it needed to be updated. So she accepted that and it still wouldn't let her in. So she's trying to call and it says she's waiting to be accepted, but I don't see her here. So I'll be communicating with her and try to get her in here if you want to go ahead.
All right, very good. Zach, just let us know when you are ready to start the meeting. And
this is Roger Hershey. I can't get in, but I'm on the phone.
All right. Hey, Roger.
Hey.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and call this to order. It seems like we have a quorum, and with Diane coming in. So we have everyone listed here with us: Ira Anders, Roger Hershey, April, I believe. I don't know April's last name.
Schuler.
Hi, April. And I think that's it, with maybe Diane joining us here as well. Tamara emailed us the minutes from the November meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look over those? And did anyone have any questions about them?
I have a couple of questions. Ira Anders.
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, on the mass care, since we now have a health department reinstated, is the mass care stuff still under our auspices of creation? Or
yes, Ira, it is.
It's still there. So we're doing testing and all of that. And
we're supporting the testing. The health department is handling the testing. We're doing food box delivery, warming centers, and emergency housing type of scenarios.
Okay. Do we get money from the city to help us do that, or does that take money, or?
It's basically those of us that are regularly employed, especially those of us that are salaried. It is actually part of our job description that we are, in addition to our regular duties, we are assigned to mass care during times of emergency.
Oh, okay. Huh. And then on the moving of money, well, I guess we didn't move money to tourism, but we moved expenses from tourism over to parks and recreation. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
So Morris, maybe you can help with the logistics of it, but essentially we have committed to covering the cost of the staff that is associated with maintaining the historic grounds and sites. and covering those with Parks and Recreation sales tax money, the behind the scenes for on a temporary basis, with the intention of being reimbursed once the sales tax returns to its normal rate of receipt. So the behind the scenes, Morris, maybe you can help me remember if it is actually being transferred or if it's going to be, if we're just going to bill per payroll.
Yeah, they've already actually started to transfer those funds over to park sales tax. So those funds are starting to show up. So that is correct.
So they transfer them to Parks. That's what I just heard. They transferred them to Parks sales tax.
Yeah, they're in essence being paid for out of the park sales tax now.
Oh,
In other words, at the start of the July 1 budget, they were being paid out of transient guest tax, but now they've transferred those particular costs to park sales tax.
all right. Okay. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had on that. So you need a motion for approval?
Eric, this is Hershey. Eric, does that bear interest?
No, Roger, it is not.
Good. So it's a no interest loan, basically.
Yes.
Did anyone have any other questions before moving to approve those? Okay, would someone move to approve those minutes?
I'll move that. Ira?
Thank you, Ira.
I'll second. April.
Perfect. Okay, so we will approve those.
This is Roger. Let the record reflect that I abstained. I wasn't at that meeting.
Very good. I won't have many chair comments, but moving through this, I'd just like to welcome Ira and April. I wasn't here last time to welcome you both. I know Ira from my neighborhood, and know I believe, Ira, you have served on the Parks Commission before. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Well,
About
welcome.
100 ago.
Okay. Well, welcome back. Welcome back home.
Thank you.
And April, welcome as well. I'm sorry I wasn't here for that meeting. My wife, as the vice president of the Independence Foundation Board, had a conflicting meeting. And so, as I was telling people earlier, that childcare fell to me, but I'm here today and happy to see both of you. Thank you all for being here. And I think we can move ahead into the director's report.
Okay, Tamara, are you sharing the agenda?
Yes, just a moment.
All right, here we go. Okay, let's talk briefly about our current budget position. So as you know, each quarter we meet and review the previous quarter's expenditures in general and our revenue to sort of give you the snapshot of where we are presently. We have a report to share with you as well. So as Tamara gets that one up, I will tell you that we tried to get these out. Our intention was to get these out yesterday to you all for an earlier review than just an hour before the meeting, so we apologize for that. But literally, we were just getting new information last night as late as 6 o'clock, and we got some more information today. So this is pretty much hot off the presses, and we are still getting new information in. So this is just, like I said before, a snapshot of what we're looking at for this current fiscal year. So the report that you're seeing has a number of different features to it. It has the actuals, or where we ended up in the last 2 previous fiscal years. It has what the budget was approved for this fiscal year. Then we have a revised budget that basically we reduced due to some COVID actions that we were needing to take. Percentage of the budget expended or revenue collected at this point. And then we added another column for year-end projections on where we think we're going to end up this fiscal year. So Morris, would you be so kind as to walk us through the spreadsheet?
Eric, before you do that, I can't get in. Is it feasible for Tamara to email me? I've got the one she sent out earlier. Is it feasible for her to send the new ones as you go through this?
Yeah, I think the one that we're looking at is the one that was sent out earlier today, about an hour ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have that one that she sent you, Roger, that is the same as the one that we're looking at here.
Okay, let me look. All right, go ahead. We can.
All right. Eric asked me to kind of run through this, so I'll just kind of go through the 3 funds, talk a little bit, and then if there's any questions, happy to answer any questions. So a little bit of an explanation here on this top. So what you're seeing here is revenue. And this first line, you see these 2 numbers here. These were actually when we were still part of the general fund. You can see these boxes are grayed out for the current approved budget. And going forward, that's because as of July 1, we were no longer funded with any general fund dollars. So that's that represents general funding previous years, 18-19 and 19-20. Starting July 1, we started receiving health and recreation levy funds. And so you can see that represented here, and then the amount we received and what we project. So and this is kind of different fund. With the levy fund, we actually received that from the county, and that's a lump sum amount we receive November, December timeframe. So we received that all at once. So as you can see, we actually received slightly more than we anticipated, but that was kind of a lump sum dollar amount, and that should be it for the end of the year. We also have some other associated revenue, cemetery revenue here. So these represent this total line for revenue for 2 previous years, current adopted budget, and then received currently through December 31st or second quarter, and then our year-end projection. So Tamara, if you could scroll up just a little bit. Now we'll talk about the expense side under the levy. So here are the cost centers, and the reason we have 2 numbers here, 6001 was the old general fund. So the first numbers were the old general fund numbers, and we have that because again, these last 2 previous years were general fund dollars. And then these second set of numbers are finance numbers for our new health and recreation levy numbering for these cost centers. Approved budget, the column here represents expended through December 31st, % of the budget, and then our year-end projection. So, and at the very bottom there, before that purple bar, you see the total operations expenses. So what we've expended through the end of December, so 910,000 represents 47, almost 48% of the budget for the recreation levy, and then projected out to be about 1.8 million, so slightly under budget for the end of the year. So maybe I should stop there. Any questions on health and recreation levy fund?
So is that a solid figure? In other words, there's no chance of recouping the difference between what was budgeted and what that shows?
No, we received the 1.85 million, and so any savings just goes back into that fund, basically. If I understood your question, did I answer your question?
No, I'm not sure it did. My question was, the budget was more than what you showed, right?
Yes.
189 versus 184. And I'm saying is 184 what we're gonna get through the end of the year, or is that a tentative figure of some sort?
So that represents what we expect to spend out of those cost centers. So we're spending less than what was budgeted. So in essence, since we have greater revenue than expense, we'll have extra money in essence that'll roll into next year's budget.
Thank you.
So, okay, hopefully that answered your question. Sorry if I misunderstood.
Yes, it did.
I have a question about H&R levy. That's health and recreation levy. Did I understand that comes from the county? I probably should know this, but I don't.
So the county collects that as part of property taxes. The voters voted in, oh goodness, Eric, 1967 or so, late 60s, to impose that as part of property taxes. So.
Yeah, and currently the split is 68% recreation, and the remaining then goes to the health department primarily for animal services previous to the health department being reinstated. So we are locked in at 68% of the revenue collected for the health and recreation levy.
Oh, okay. And that's different than the sales tax for parks and recreation. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the H&R levy, did that have to do with the animal shelter and people voting for that? Is that
No,
part of it?
that actually was a use tax scenario that they did that. So we're really talking about three different things, all of which does impact our department. So we have the Parks and Recreation sales tax, which is an additional tax on every sale that takes place. And then you have the Health and Recreation levy, which is a property tax levy, which is what we just covered here. And then there is a use tax that the city has recently passed, and it goes primarily to fund the pets and police, if you remember that campaign initiative. So, but those are capped at how much those can take from that use tax. Any dollar above and beyond that cap then waterfalls into these funds. And although we are not showing it, we are expecting for that to waterfall in. We're still working on the totals and what maybe we might be able to expect in Parks and Recreation as additional funding from that initiative.
Eric, this is Roger. Ira, of course, was on before when there was nothing that showed up for the levy. You might explain to him how that came about and why it now replaced the general fund money.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So as Morris indicated, we've always had that property tax since the late 60s or so, and it was collected and was essentially rolled into all of the general fund accounts. When we had a fully operational health department coupled with the Parks and Recreation department, those two in combination were funded at $4 million or so collectively. The Health and Recreation levy generates about $2.5 million. So it was simply part of that larger general fund. But as the general fund became stressed and more cuts were placed on the Parks and Recreation department, it came down to, after we figured it out, we were getting very, very close to that $2.5 million threshold that property tax, that Health and Recreation levy tax was actually generating, which specifically has to be used for those purposes. So we had to separate that out of the general fund because we were then being funded at that threshold at that point. So in order to protect and make sure that those collected revenues were being used for the appropriate purposes, we diverged ourselves of the general fund and now strictly have that recreation levy in place.
Thank you. I just had not seen or heard H&R levy before, so.
Yeah, it was buried in and amongst the rest of the general funds and property taxes. But and the unfortunate part of that story is our funding has been cut down to where that became apparent that we better pull ourselves out to make sure we maintain the right amount of money.
So we get no other general fund from the city.
Yeah, we do not get any other general fund from the city at this point.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
That does bring up a question for later, because I think I don't know that the ordinance, when they adopted that sales tax, reflected that nicety or that nuance. But let's go on. I don't want to tie it up with that discussion now.
Thanks.
All right, well, let's move on to sales tax then. So Tamara, if you can scroll down. So again, the same format, kind of below this purple header line across the top of the page there. So the first couple rows show Parks and Recreation sales tax, so anticipated revenues. So you can see the 18, 19, 19, 20 actual columns. So those are the dollars collected specifically for the Parks and Recreation sales tax. We also had other associated revenue. So you can see the total revenue below that, those lines. The column there, 2021 approved budget, so approved revenue, what we've received through December 31st, the percents of that revenue that we've received, and then our year-end projection. So approved budget was 4.3. We've received 2.2, a little over 2.2 million through the end of December for second quarter, and projecting about 4.6. So a little bit higher than initially was budgeted, which is good news. So
that is extremely good news, given what we've all been facing at this point. The sales tax obviously has held steady at this point, and there's a lot of stimulus reasons for that and other reasons, but thankfully we are still just barely above flat, but we are still in pretty good shape for our sales tax revenues. We're still going to be cautious, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but we're still going to be cautious moving forward because we're still on a slippery slope, and we're not sure we're going to maintain that level of receipt. So we'll talk about that in a minute, though.
So below the revenue, then again, we have those individual cost centers. So these are in the Parks and Recreation sales tax or funded out of that. So the bottom of the page there, you can see on the left 6041 through 6047, and then it goes to the next page as well. So if Tamara wants to scroll down, we can see those budgeted numbers, actuals, projected. And then at the top of the page there, so 48 and 49, and then total operational costs. And I might interject here, you asked earlier about in the minutes, the question about tourism, the historic sites funding. Well, if you look at the far right upper corner of the page or the screen here, if you see that 197,859.
Yep.
So there's nothing in the received through December 31st because nothing had been received into that account. But in January, actually, our finance department created a 6049 historic sites park sales tax account. And so we're projecting, and that's the total so far, but we're projecting those dollars. Again, that's covering tourism costs for historic sites, that loan in essence from Parks and Recreation sales tax. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
So then below operations, we have a debt service line that's for the market. We want to make sure that was included. And then below that are other capital projects, the other categories that we have. And then just before kind of the dark blue line at the bottom, you see the total capital for the summary of those accounts. So any questions about Parks and Rec sales tax?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it pertains to this sales tax or not. So the sales tax revenue that we received, does that come from like businesses here in the city?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's or go ahead.
Do we project that to possibly go down with several of our businesses closing?
Yes. Well, yes. Just the loss of JCPenney's and the and Macy's in combination was about $500,000 to the city, not to us, but $500,000 to the city, of which that means about $55,000 in loss to us, somewhere in there. So yes, we're taking a look at all those projections for next year, and
right. And I saw the other day that now Barnes and Nobles and possibly Dillard's.
Yeah, I haven't heard Dillard's yet. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so in essence, in our cash flow, we actually reduced. Eric just mentioned we took out about $55,000 from what we would normally anticipate for sales tax revenue for next year due to those closings. So we're really cognizant of situations like that. We try to factor that in as our best guess. So certainly impacts the revenue.
Now, and that's another reason, folks, that we haven't put anything in here yet for that waterfall. It is our hope that that waterfall is going to offset what we're losing, at least for now. So in essence, what people are buying online and being taxed for, hopefully those revenues as they flow down to us are going to offset some of the revenue receipts from sales taxes that we gain from in-store purchases. It's certainly not a positive thing when it comes to, hometown jobs and all of those types of scenarios. But from a revenue perspective, we're hoping that it's a wash, but we're keeping our eyes out on it.
So we have an internet sales tax. Now, is that on everything that's sold, bought in the city?
No, it's just on, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Morris, but it is just on for businesses that have some presence in the state, right? So, so as long as they have a store somewhere or a physical presence in the state somewhere, we're allowed to receive some sales tax from that purchase. There is another bill making its way around Jeff City right now called the Wayfair Initiative. So that basically covers the rest of the story. So all of those businesses that are outside of Missouri that don't have a physical presence here would also be subject to that sales tax.
Okay. Well, legislature bats it around back and forth. I lose track of whether we have it or don't have it after a while.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think the Wayfair was making pretty good traction last year, and then COVID hit, and that kind of threw everything out the window, unfortunately, in Jeff City, as everybody was dealing with the COVID situation and funding for that. So,
thank you.
All right. Well, moving on. So down below this blue bar here, camera can scroll down. So this is our third funding source. So this is transient guest tax. So again, right below that blue line there at the top, you can see transient guest tax. So we have our revenue, the actual line for transient guest tax itself specifically, and then other associated revenue. So you see 18-19 actuals, 19-20 last year's fiscal year actuals, current approved budget, what we've received so far, and then year-end projection. Now of our three funds, you're going to notice here that there's quite a difference. The other two are very healthy. In fact, are coming in ahead of what was budgeted. Here, there's quite a decrease. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Eric, or you want me to. But
yeah, let's really, the numbers tell the story here. And in that 18-19 actuals column, that was a full year of typical sales tax receipts from our hotel tax. So this is like a bed tax. So when someone rents a room, you'll see an additional tax on there, transient guest tax. That's what this is. It is intended to fund tourism related promotions and activities. And the receipts usually are around that $2 million number. So 18-19 was a pretty typical year. In 19-20, we were actually a little ahead of pace going into the fourth quarter. And then COVID hit and everything shut down essentially, and hotel visits went down to almost next to nothing. So that situation and the loss of revenue in that last quarter forced us into a $2 million receipt scenario, into a $1.6 million receipt scenario, which is where we were. This year, we were making some gains in the summer. Then the second round second round, if you will, of the COVID infection rates rising, sent the hotel booking rates down once again, and we started trending in the opposite direction. We have only collected $621,000 through 12/31. That represents about we were on pace at that rate for about a 41 to 42% decrease year-end projection on what we typically would bring in. So all that said, we're hoping for about 1.1 million The tourism department commissioned an economic impact study earlier this year, and they actually branched off and did a COVID-related study for us as well to see what the impact today and into the future is going to be. They were predicting for Independence that we would be 30% down this year. Again, we are currently 40 to 42% down. Next fiscal year, they were looking at us recovering, but only to the point where we would be 16% down. Then the following year after that, 7% down, and then not fully recovering until, what is it, 2023 at that point.
Yeah.
So, so slow recovery, but recovery nonetheless. Now that was their professional opinion, and they were looking at trends all over North America and then comparing it to what our current trends are here. But there are others in the tourism industry that say that is a little pessimistic, and they have a little bit more optimistic view and think that we're going to recover at a quicker pace than that. So that's sort of worst case scenario, I guess, is the way I'm taking it, is that we've got a 3-year period until we're fully back to regular receipt rates for tourism.
Are there plans or hopes to have tourist sites open soon? I mean, I would think
Yes.
if anybody on the internet to look at Independence, why would you cut Independence when it's open?
Yeah, so well, a couple of things I think are going to start helping that rate of hotel rates. First of all, the Royals are back on a regular schedule, and they're going to allow fans in to a certain degree. That's certainly positive. The Royals are probably our biggest hotel generator, followed second, honestly, by people that are coming to Kansas City for other things and choosing us as their location to stay, or people just passing through the highway and down the highway on Highway 70 and stopping in before they get to, or just passing out of Kansas City for the night. So then after that is that special niche that people are coming in specifically for Trails and Truman and the things that we are offering. So with the Royals coming back, with our sites they are going to reopen in April. We're going to open those though on a modified basis. We're going to be open to the public Thursday through Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for regular tours. That was decided after we took a look at some of the trends on when visitors were actually showing up for tours. Those were the peak days. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were very low as far as visitor rates are concerned. That's not to say that if we have a group coming in that we won't open it up for special tours for people that want to book special tours. We'll certainly do that. But honestly, we have also lost quite a few volunteers with the pandemic, et cetera, and folks that just aren't real comfortable returning back even this spring when we reopen those. So those limited days are both from a budget perspective as well as a staffing perspective. And it matches up well, I think, with when the visitors are coming. So yes, we will reopen all of those except for the National Frontier Trails Museum. And as his budget would indicate, that particular facility is going to be closed one more year. But we are going to work on some stabilization projects and do some interior finishing and take advantage of being closed. So Morris can take you through that though.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a lot more about under projects, but so let me continue on here just to wrap up this report. So we talked about transient guest tax revenue. So if Tamara scrolls down just a little bit there, we can see then the 4 cost centers for the expense side, 60, 61 through 64. As you can notice on that 60-63 line, so over on the far right-hand side, you can see there's a 0 there. Again, that would be the cost center that was moved. The expenses are moved over to park sales tax this year to cover those expenses for the historic sites. Then below total operations, you have the 3 capital accounts. You can see some dollars spent there for capital. Not a whole lot of dollars, again, with the downturn in the transient guest tax, but just have to have some funds available for the general fix-it repairs and ongoing maintenance that you have to have with older historic buildings. So, And then also the Truman Depot. I'll talk about Truman Depot projects later, but there is funding that we have to have available for our match for the federal grant TAP funds that that we have to match to get those federal dollars for that project. So, and then if we go to the bottom, I think the last page, top of the last page, this is kind of a summary here. So this is just kind of a quick snapshot of all the revenue, all the operating expenses, total debt service, total capital for the 2 previous years. So it kind of shows that year-end position. And then over on the right in the kind of greenish color columns, you see the first column there is through December 31st. So the second quarter, again, for revenue, expenses, et cetera. So we're at or at the end of December for the second quarter, we were at 48.7% overall expenses for the budget. And then on the far right, you can see our year-end projection, kind of a total snapshot of those different accounts. So any questions on any of that?
So in total, Morris, the very bottom right-hand number is what we are projecting as year-end expenses out of revenues. That's going to be our position for the entire department. So we're looking to end in a positive $725,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And a lot of
$1 million below what we were. Wait a minute, never mind.
I was just going to add, a lot of that has to do with the savings is really because we have limited ability for programming. The COVID has really done a lot of, changing of typical programs and scheduling and events and activities. So we haven't been able to spend the dollars like we would like to on, certain programs and things. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Eric, but.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we get to Jody's report, but we have reduced hours at the recreation centers and things of that nature. And as Morris went through earlier, we do have some increased revenue. We have a little bit more sales tax. We have a little bit more of the levy tax, and the other area where we are well above our revenues over what we projected, unfortunately, is at the cemetery. So we have unfortunately been receiving more folks there and doing much more interment than we had anticipated. So as a result, those revenues are up. That's certainly nothing to be real happy and proud about, but it is a fact. Those are up.
And then go ahead. Sorry.
That's a heck of a way to get money, isn't it, though?
Yeah, it's pretty grim. That's for sure.
Thank you, Morris.
Sure. There's just one last sheet. If we want to, Tamara, if you want to click on that other tab there. So the second item, we were just going to share this. Again, this is, as Eric mentioned previously, both the previous sheet you saw, that's not an official, financial report by any means. It's just kind of our internal report that we have to present to you, the same as this here. This is kind of today, this is where we're at this moment. It could change later today, tomorrow, next week. Obviously, it'll change by the end of the fiscal year. But this is kind of the anticipated proposed budget numbers for the 3 funds. So you see the 3 funds across the top of the page there. And then the total, kind of the big picture view for revenue, anticipated revenue, operations expenses, capital costs, and then kind of the year-end position. So obviously revenue minus expenses. So don't have a lot of detail with that. Just wanted to present that as a general information. So.
And as I said, we are still working on developing the budget for next fiscal year, and I'll certainly entertain, as we have in the past, of doing a special budget meeting with you all to walk through our proposal for next year and get your feedback on it prior to sending it forward. Okay, if there are no more questions on that, let's move on the agenda then. Tamara, if you can bring that back up for us, please. Okay. We are going to, I think, roll the staffing updates into the recreation report and the park report. They'll tell you a little bit about the staffing conditions in their particular areas. So let's turn it over to Jody, who I think is with us now for a recreation program and events update.
Hello, nice to see everyone. I'm going to go through the facilities first and kind of give you an update on what's going on with them, and then I'll talk about the staffing if that's okay. So the Palmer Center remains closed to the public. Staff, however, has stayed pretty busy. Over the right before Christmas, they did a drive-through event at the Uptown Market, and were able to provide 235 of our senior population with a meal for Christmas that they could go home and prepare. It was frozen Cornish hens, some stuffing mix, vegetables, and a dessert. So we were very happy that we were able to do that. We also had Santa there to wave at him and give him a little treat bag also. As well, before Christmas, for the home delivered meals, the people we are delivering meals to, they were able to take 129 bags that had goodies for those people as well. Currently, they are delivering to 140 different households, providing meals. They're frozen, so they get 10 frozen meals, and we deliver them every other week. So they're continuing to do that, as well as offer virtual classes. They have chronic disease classes and a few exercise classes that seniors are able to participate in online. At the market, it's being used by Jackson County for COVID testing every Friday. It's for the past several months. They're going to do that through March. And then just this week, the city's health department started using it for our COVID testing as well. So far in December, well, not so far, but in December, Jackson County, let me see here, had 479 people that went through and were tested. Before Christmas, CSL, and this is at the market, sorry, at CSL, Community Services League, held their Christmas store there. It was a week-long event. And then because we were able to work out a deal with them, they provided a Mr. and Mrs. Claus for a drive-through Santa event up on the square. And we had bags with mittens and a hat and a little toy and fruit that we handed out for all the children that drove through, and Santa and Mrs. Claus were there to wave at him as they drove by. We also, with the farmers market this past year, we were recognized as the best of Eastern Jackson County's farmer markets for 2020. So we were able to open. It was a little, I think we shared with you previously some of the challenges that we faced with COVID and the different protocols that we had to follow. But obviously we did a good job since we were awarded that. Let me see, Sermon Center, we are starting to see more people return to use the workout facilities. We have changed one of our meeting rooms into an additional cardio area. So we were able to space out the equipment. People feel pretty safe coming in to work out. Staff goes through and sanitizes. We have a disinfectant spray that we spray through all the areas to make sure that it's clean. Increase the airflow for classes and for the workout areas. Class participation numbers are still down a little bit, but we still have some faithful people that are coming in to work out. George Owens had gingerbreads decorated this year that lined the trail out there, and 850 people went out for the winter solstice hike and then the walk through the gingerbread trail. They also have had full moon hikes. They had several over the past few months. They have 2 this month and 1 in March. Right now, the only full-time position that we have on hold is the senior program specialist at the Palmer Center. We have a few center attendant positions that we need to get filled, as well as a seasonal worker for George Owens. And I think that's it for me, unless there's anything else, Eric, that you think of that I missed. You're muted.
This is Ira. I appreciate what you did at Farmers Market. I was a regular visitor there, and especially when you could finally walk through it and go around and the traffic flow the way it was set up. You always got people who can't follow directions, but for the most part, it worked very well, and I appreciated that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the feedback.
Jody, this is Diane Kaiser. Do you have a projection on the opening of the gym space in the Palmer Center?
Not really. I think that I know Cheryl, who is the facility supervisor. She works closely with Mark. Because of the vulnerable population that uses that center, we want to wait until a vast majority of seniors have been able to get their vaccine. That will be one of the things we'll look for, and feedback from our health department, and of course, Eric. But yeah, I really don't. I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't have any projection.
Okay, well, let me just say that the pickleball people are going to Harris and Blue Springs Fieldhouse, and so that's a little bit of revenue, I suppose. It's going that direction. Wearing masks, and it seems to be working fine. So I just want to hold that up as, maybe.
Yeah, we've heard that. My neighbor's a big pickleball player, and he shares that with me on a regular basis. So I know there's a lot of interest in getting that back up and running. And as soon as everyone feels it will be safe, then we surely will. Does anyone else have a question or comment? Okay, thank you.
I just wanted, maybe this fits here. What about Blackburn? There are a couple of things there. And this is, I have my pickleball constituency. The windscreens some of them are loose, and in the wind, they need to be reattached so they don't tear, would be my opinion. There are anywhere from 40 to 50 people on a good afternoon, even now. Let's see, today, I don't know, but a couple of days ago when the temperature was above 50, the place is absolutely packed. So you're right, there is a lot of interest in that game, and a lot of potential.
And Diane, this is Mike from Park Maintenance. I actually talked to Jeff, our supervisor, today. He was going to go out there and check those out and get them retightened, so he is on that.
Good job. Good job.
All right, Mike, nice lead in. Why don't you give us a quick park operations update?
Okay, we have, as far as our positions, we've had a few people leave, a couple that went to different jobs and a couple that actually promoted within the department or outside the department. And so those people moved up, which created 4 of the PRT1s, and which we have open. And they've been open for a couple months now, I think. And as of right now, we've only got 1 application. So if anybody knows anybody looking for a job, or, that likes to mow grass and all that good stuff, please feel free to tell them that the city has several positions open. So we're looking for help. Our regular guys, we kind of split shifts to kind of keep these guys separated, because we had a couple instances where people would have to go to quarantine and stuff. So to help to kind of avoid that, we did some split shift work. Through the winter here, we've been working on, we took over the facility maintenance of like TMB and stuff. So these guys have been working with Public Works, getting on a schedule for like filter changes, to check out the generators, stuff like that. So they've been we're on a schedule now doing everything ourselves. So all of that, as far as Eric's crew, is up and going, and it's all in our hands now. His crew also, we had a big washout at the cemetery on the back hill to where the drainage wasn't draining right. So it was taking the hill with it. Eric and him went over, dug all that out, put a new piping system in. And with WPC's help, at a box at the bottom, we got all that taken care of, the hill back in. So now we just got to kind of work on the fence and get it straight. So that project will be done.
And just for clarification, that's Eric Hilt, not Eric Urfy. You don't want me on a Bobcat.
Yeah, Eric Hill. Sorry. A lot of the parks guys, they've been going around doing. We've had quite a bit of fence repair, just from trees pushing on fences and stuff. So they've been going around all these parks doing the fence lines, trimming the trees back, raising canopies in the parks that the mowers can get under. So I mean, we did a ton of tree work. We still got a long ways to go, but they've made a real big dent in just cleaning up the fence lines and stuff, making it look good, which was the people are really appreciating that. And the other big project we did was out at Waterfall, where the dock is. There was a pretty bad washout from where the water runs down the hill from the shelter and stuff down. And we brought in riprap and redid all that to kind of shore up that whole side there and make it where it wasn't just a muddy cliff, and which also kind of keeps the geese from walking up it. So that project is done now. There's a little inset underneath the dock itself that we're going to feed some concrete in and shore that up, and then that project will be completed. And the last thing that they've been doing is snow removal. So everybody, they're on split shifts, helping Public Works and all that working together, and everybody's on snow removal, getting that done.
And then one additional thing that the staff, both in the Parks Division as well as the Recreation Division, have also been doing and helping with is our pandemic relief and our other ancillary activities for emergency operations. As we talked a little bit earlier about, we have done quite a number of food box distribution events, primarily staffed from the actual distribution itself from our friends at Volunteer KC, who have been an amazing resource for us and have helped us get those trucks in and get the food distributed out. We serve anywhere from 500 to 700 families with one of those trucks. Sometimes we receive 2 trucks and do twice the amount. We do have a food box event coming up Saturday. So we're going to be distributing food once again at the Independence Athletic Complex from 9 a.m. until roughly noon. So 9 a.m. until quite frankly, the food has been all distributed. And usually that's about 11:30 or so. Sometimes it stretches till noon. We're also hosting COVID testing out at the Independence Athletic Complex again on Saturday. We've been doing that for a number of weeks out there. That's noon to 2 this Saturday. So if you are wanting to test yourself for COVID, it is a saliva test. So we're not shoving anything up anybody's nose. It's simply depositing saliva into a tube, which is much easier than the other method. We are also opening up a warming center at the Sermon Center Saturday through Wednesday. We are open for that warming center for people to come in and get out of the cold and charge up their devices, essentially during operating hours. So 8 to 8 each of those days, with the exception of Sunday, which is 8 to 4. If we still have people that are needing sheltering by the time we close, we have a cooperative agreement with CSL, and CSL has a cooperative agreement with one of our local hoteliers, so that we have hotel vouchers that have been delivered to us, and IPD will help transport anybody needing to get needing overnight shelter that was seeking it at the Sermon Center after hours to the hotel. So Jody's staff obviously has been quite busy in setting all of that up, getting that arranged, helping out actually with some of the distribution events as well. And Mike's crews are helping get all of those things set up, and actually will be on site for most of Saturday to help us with Saturday's event too. So that's the secondary role that Parks and Recreation finds itself in during emergency operation time, state of emergency. And we've been doing that now for almost the past year, believe it or not.
Mike, this is Roger Hershey. Anything going on out at George Owen in the past few weeks or months?
Caught me off guard. No, I think so. I mean, other than what Jeff has his programs going.
Yeah, he has been going through there through the park with some himself, as well as with some part-time and volunteer assistants. They've cleaned some trails up out there, so he's telling me it's looking pretty good. They're far from done, but they're making some progress there. We have a volunteer group that wants to come in here in the next few weeks and repair some of the bridges, some of the footbridges that we have out there. We're going to supply some materials for them, and they're actually going to redeck some of those bridges for us, which is great. And they're also working on some of the native areas. Obviously, they've cut back this time of year. They're working on cutting back a lot of that in preparation for the spring bloom and growth season. So there's a little bit of work going on out there, but no major projects per se.
Yeah,
is that some?
Go ahead.
Is that some particular organization, or is that a volunteer group that's organized under the Parks and Rec umbrella?
Yeah, it's actually a person who used to be pretty involved with Parks and Rec, and his work caused him to travel a bit more, so he had to tap out of regular volunteer efforts, and he's doing some special projects with him and his study group, Bible study group, basically, I believe is what it is, and they have done a couple of little projects for us.
Are you looking for more of those groups?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I got some ideas. I'll let you know.
Fantastic, thank you.
So this is Ira, our overall staffing for people working in the parks, are we at about the same number, or did I hear we have job openings right now?
Yeah, we're 4 short right now. Ira, we got 4 job openings, and we're having a hard time getting people to apply for those. So I'm going to talk with the HR director. Actually, I already sent her an email to see if we can come up with some other places maybe to advertise and reach out in a little bit different areas to see if we can't generate some interest. That's significant, because going into spring, that's the guys that are on the mowers, and if we don't get those filled, we're going to be behind. Mike pointed out earlier today, or maybe it was one of his staff members in a meeting that we had, that we are hoping that this is not a sign that that we also will not have any applicants for our seasonal positions. So, you know, we'll see, but boy, those seasonals are sure important for us, doing spring trimming and litter patrol and things of that nature, keeping things caught up in the spring and summer. So fingers are crossed that we'll start getting some folks applying for these positions.
Eric, if you send out what you're looking for, job descriptions or whatever, maybe we could help on that.
Absolutely.
In terms of referrals.
Yeah, Tamara, if you don't mind, that would be great. We can send out a job posting announcement that we developed in the general job description. We'll send that out to the group. That's a great idea. Thank you, Roger.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if those positions paid the minimum $15 an hour.
Yes. Well, yes, the full-time positions certainly do. The part-time positions are below that. I think we're starting there at 13.
No, state minimum wage now is $10.30.
$10.30, that's right. So if it goes to $15 an hour, then yes, obviously we would be paying that.
Is there an age limit? Is it 16 and up or 18 and up, or?
I believe it is 18. Well, it's 18 for the full-time, and I believe it's 18 also for the seasonals, isn't it, Mike?
We actually had them reduce that to 16 here 2 years ago, but we still didn't get a lot of apps on them.
Oh, I'll send you one.
Yay! That's a productive meeting right there.
This is about the time of year that schools are following up with students too who've graduated. So the local high schools would be a good place where they're following up and seeing what kids are up to offer that. So I'd be happy to circulate that as well.
Thank you. Okay, Morris, if you don't mind, maybe update us on some tourism and arena projects.
Sure. So just to continue on with some project updates. So we have a couple tourism projects. The major one that we've talked about at the last couple meetings, I believe, is the Truman Depot project. So the city received a around $350,000 federal grant to upgrade some facility improvements to the depot, and then also to connect the connecting trail along Pacific over to the National Frontier Trails Museum. That project has been ongoing for the last, probably 5 years now. So it's been very slow project. And we were ready to move forward at several stages, but certainly a year ago, and then COVID hit, and that obviously caused some delays. Currently, the status is we are waiting for a letter, which my understanding is we're supposed to receive tomorrow from Union Pacific, which will be the final document we need so that we can actually bid the project and move forward. So again, fingers crossed, but we're hoping to get that letter tomorrow from Union Pacific, which kind of signs off, because the reason for that is it crosses that railroad spur. And so we have to have, their approval, if you will, for working in their right of way. And they have to approve those improvements along the route. So anyway, once we get that letter, hopefully we can put out to bid. The goal is to get a contractor, advertise the project, get a contractor on board, hopefully late spring, hopefully have a groundbreaking, early May is kind of the target at this point. And the hope would be to have the project completed by around fall, October, November-ish timeframe. So if there's any questions on that, a couple other projects we're working on, the National Frontier Trails Museum, Eric mentioned earlier. We've had some stabilization issues on the east exterior wall. I think we've mentioned this before as well. So we've had some engineering studies done. They've looked at that. They're also looking at the historic water tower, which is next to the museum. So we're in the process of evaluating that information, figuring out a direction, and hoping to get that project moving forward. With the museum being closed, it kind of gives us an opportunity to get that work done, and then previous to reopening the museum. So hoping to capitalize on that. And then finally, the arena, Cable Dom Arena. So this year, we just had one project that we had in the budget, and that was for a building management system. As you can imagine, that's a very large building and very technical heating and cooling system. The system that was installed 11 years ago had reached the end of its life, and so we had a project to update the building management software program for heating and cooling for the building. So that project is probably 90% complete. I know they've installed the software, and I think that'll be complete probably the end of February, I believe. So
I think it's important to note that any of the arena projects and enhancements are being paid for out of the Independence Event Center Community Improvement District. So they are not general fund dollars or in any way Parks and Recreation and Tourism dollars. It's a separate fund and can only be used for that as well. So essentially that SID retires the debt service and pays for major capital improvements at that building. So all of the new enhancements, if you've been in there, from the video boards to new Wi-Fi to all of the things that you see that have been improved over there, that all comes out of that SID. And that SID is also producing, much like our sales tax, at a little bit higher rate than what it was even producing last year. So it too is healthy, and we are comfortable enough with the SID that we are planning some capital projects for next fiscal year to start that program up again out there. We're still working through exactly what those are, but you'll see some more enhancements taking place out there soon.
Is it the water tower at the Frontier Trail Center?
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Historic? Is that a historic item?
Well, many people consider it to be, so that's why I use that term.
It sure is heck sentimental, Ira. I'll tell you that.
It's really? It's just a water tower. And there's
I know. There's some people that really like that, and
Is that right?
yeah, yeah, I'll leave it at that at this point.
Okay, I will too then.
Okay, that completes director and staff reports. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Gall.
Sure, sounds good. Well, let's transition to the next item of the agenda, which is old business. Do we have any items that need to be addressed at this time for old business? How about new business?
The only thing under new business that I might ask, Zach, I offered earlier when we were going through the budget to schedule a separate meeting to go over our budget proposal with you all before it gets too far down the road of the submittal process. So I guess just if you don't mind asking for a round of input to see if people would be interested in doing that. It'll have to take place within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Sure. Does anybody have any input related to Eric's request here, or have any, problems with setting up a meeting over the next couple of weeks? I suppose we could discuss availability and try to set something up now. If we were to shoot for a Thursday over the next couple of weeks, are people open to that?
It's okay with me.
It's Roger. Yeah, okay, here.
Morris, well, Eric, I'm not sure. What do you think you said in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but I think our cutoff is February 19th. Are we trying to get before that?
Well, that's the cutoff for actually physically entering it into the system, but the discussions with the city manager won't be taking place until March. So, so the only caveat that I will place there, Zach, is if we set a meeting that works for everyone here, we have to coordinate that with the City 7 staff to make sure that the live streaming time slot is available.
Understood. Should we? It sounds like people are generally available around that time. It could be. It sounds like enough people are expressing interest that shouldn't be a problem to meet. You're going to just contact the group to set up that appointment, get it on the calendar.
Yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're looking at about the 4:15 on a upcoming Thursday within the next few weeks.
Yeah, either the 18th or the 25th, somewhere in there, perhaps.
Yeah.
That sounds like good enough lead time to at least get it on people's calendar. Pretty good turnout today, so I think the time would be fine.
Okay. I'll send out an email tomorrow just to make sure, and we'll get a consensus on the date, and then I'll send a meeting invite. And if I could just interject, you may have noticed on the agenda that we sent out, I think our previous agenda showed the next meeting in May, which is the third quarter meeting, and that is still scheduled to happen. But we added the fourth quarter meeting, which will be in August. So if you'll just note that August date, and I will be sending the meeting invitation for Teams meeting tomorrow or early next week for that August meeting as well, so that it'll just be on your calendar.
Tamara, what's that third quarter meeting date?
It is, I'm sorry, I've got so many screens open here. May 6th and then August 5th.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can see it at the bottom there.
Yeah, well, I don't see him. I'm not on.
Oh, okay, yes.
Do I remember that there is a spring through of parks that we each do?
Yes. So generally in that April, May, usually May timeframe. There is a park inspection that generally takes place by each of the commission members. They're assigned various different parks, and usually that happens in May and October. So Tamara, perhaps you might be able to send that list out to the group again, just as a reminder of what parks have been assigned to who.
I can do that.
Ira and April, were you able to see a list of the unassigned parks? I noticed that in the minutes.
Yeah, I got my assignment.
Yes.
I'm ready to go.
Great. Good. That's good to hear. Well, if either of you need assistance, I offered this to Sean as well. I'm happy to help either of you. I could even go on a visit to your assigned park with you. Just let me know if you'd like to do that, and I can kind of show you how I go about it.
Thank you.
I've visited a number of the parks already. Once I got reappointed back to this board, I went around and looked at a number of the parks. But I got my 3.
Excellent. It's motivation right there. I appreciate that, Mr. Anders. Well, does anybody have any other new business they'd like to bring up before we adjourn? Well, I'll take that as no. So thank you all for joining us. Would somebody move to adjourn the meeting?
So move. Ira.
Thank you. And we have a second.
Second, April.
All right. Well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Eric, do you have anything for us before we sign off here?
No, sir. Just everybody stay safe, and of course, go Chiefs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Happy Super Bowl.
Thank y'all.
All right, take care. Thanks, everybody.